What is up, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about the Emax Nanoscout. This is a little 65 millimeter whoop that is so fun. I love flying this thing, and I'm going to talk about what I love about it, some issues that I've had, and kind of some comparisons, alternatives. I'm going to also walk through some Betaflight and ESC configurator stuff. So stick around for it all. Hope you guys enjoy. So this is a 65 millimeter motor post tiny whoop. These are so fun to fly. If you don't have one, you should definitely have some kind of tiny whoop if you're into FPV. You can fly them inside, fly them outside. They're just so much fun. And so if you're kind of getting into this stuff, what's the competition? I'll talk about that first. So the Beta FPV Air 65 is a very well known. They just came out with the version 2, which people are really loving. Mobula 6 is also an option, and Newbie drone Hummingbird is also a popular option. And so kind of where does this fall in that? So it's going to kind of lead to a discussion of lightweightness and versus durability. So most drones these days are kind of trending towards lighter weight. And lighter weight's great because it's like easier to fly, you get longer run times, and they're just like, or not necessarily easier to fly, but at the very least you get a lot more punch, you got a lot more power, you can do like freestyle and stuff. Whereas a tiny whoop like this one, for example, which is a bit heavier, this one is 20, 23 and a half grams, I believe. 23 and a half grams. So this one's built much more with like durability in mind. And so it's going to be, um, you know, yeah, it's just going to be very durable. And it's also the extra weight is going to be better for if you're flying outside. And the extra weight is also good for like throttle controls a little bit easier. It's not quite as like jerky and punchy and like hard to control. So that's like a good kind of like comparison for you. If the super lightweight, like 15 gram, like Air 65 is on the very one side of the spectrum. This drone is pretty much all the way on the other side. It's very heavy. I mean, not extremely heavy, but that's what it is. So yeah, so let's kind of just like start from top to bottom with this guy. So I'm gonna start with the frame. So this is an excellent frame. They have pictures on the website of people like crunching it and stuff. I don't know. I've never really done that, but I've been very happy with it generally. I'm gonna talk about, I guess, just general durability first. This frame or this drone, I have just like smashed into concrete, walls, trees, everything, and it's done really well for me. I've owned it for about 9 months now, and this is my original frame, which obviously, as you can see, took some damage over time. But I flew it for several months, and then eventually it was just getting more and more cracked, and so I replaced the frame a few months ago, and it's been doing really well for me. It's definitely hot tip, fly like over grass and soft things if you're trying new tricks, because that's just like so much easier on your drones. This one, I did repair a couple times and was able to keep flying for a bit. I put some heat shrink with a little bit of maybe even some super glue in there to kind of just like stabilize it, and that works really well to keep me flying for a bit. But yeah, generally, the frame I've been super happy with. Durability, canopy is like a little bit kind of thin, but honestly, it works pretty well. Um, I haven't really had any issues with that. So that's kind of the frame durability wise. And another thing that I really like about this frame is it's got nice wide or tall, I guess you might say, propeller guards. So this drone flies very like it flies like it's on rails. Honestly, it's like that extra wind resistance compared to like something like a Air 65 V2, for example, that has like tiny little, very thin propeller guards. That is going to fly very well outside. It's not going to get tossed around by the wind, and it's going to be fast. But on the other hand, this one is going to be, it's like a bit more of a slower flyer. And like if you stop and turn around and go the other direction, it's not very slidey. You don't get a lot of like slide with this drone because the big wide propeller guards kind of like slow you down and then turn you around. So I really like the way this drone flies. It really feels like it's flying very like exactly where I want it to, which is like really nice, especially for like kind of a beginner drone, if that's what you're into. Finally, with the frame, so the way that you do the battery is you kind of slide it in this little spot here, and that works pretty well. I actually really like it a lot. I haven't had a single battery ejection, which is great. And it's just like so easy to fly in or like throw your battery in. You don't have to mess around with like adjusting, I don't know, like shoving things in or batteries not fitting or whatever. So works really well. Um, this is the original like rubber band that was on here, and I've flown a couple hundred batteries through this thing. So still working great. There might be a very small tear in it or something, but honestly, generally a very like an excellent design. I've been very happy with that. Speaking of the battery, I'm going to talk about the battery connector and the battery connection, I guess, next. First of all, the one thing that I don't love about this battery connection, I do like that it's on the back, which is great. So most of the time, if you're going to crash, it's going to be on the back. But I don't really know. It's just very much like it's broken on me a few times. As you can see, I've had to kind of repair it. So I originally tried to, I'll just kind of, I'll get to this in a minute, but I'm going to use this to kind of talk about my point. So basically the drone kind of comes like this, and it's just got this like big, battery thing that kind of flops around here. And every time you crash, it's like designed to kind of bend around like this. And so every time you crash, if you crash in the back, that battery's getting bumped. And so I've probably broken the battery connector like twice now, maybe, and I've had to resolder it. The most recent time I fixed it, I tried to put somewhat of an angle on here, as you can see, hoping that would make it last a little bit better. I don't really know. I also added a bunch of tape to kind of reinforce it, so that definitely probably added a bit of weight. But um, one small complaint that I've had with this drone is definitely that battery connection. But otherwise, I mean, that's been pretty fine. Next, yeah, I'm going to talk about the general battery type of connection. So this is Emax's, I believe is 830, and I mean, honestly, it works really well. No complaints with how it works. So as I right in, and usually I end up kind of just like pinching it off, and you're like good to go. So holds on strong. I've never had a battery ejection. I've never had a battery disconnection mid-flight. That's great. The one problem with it is it's like not as mainstream. So that's definitely something to consider. Like your Whoopster and other like most things are on VT 2.0 these days. NX69. I don't really know. PH 2.0. I think, yeah, I don't really know. It's easy enough to change connectors. I didn't happen to have any tiny whoops that were already BT 2.0, so that's cool. So I just rolled with this, and kind of the battery solution that I've figured out is so the charger that comes with it originally comes, I've somewhat modified this charger. So this charger came with 6 ports, and what I did was I bought 3 batteries, charge them there, and then I also made 3 connections here. And so this is like an XT30 to the A30 connection. And as you can see, I can just plug this into my balance charger. So what I do is usually I'll charge up the batteries using this. And then after after I fly, so I'll kind of fly one of two ways. So I'll either fly it down to 3.5 volts, and that way I don't need to, usually if you in my experience, fly down to 3.5, bounces back up to storage voltage, you're good to go. You don't need to do anything. But if you fly it lower than that, sometimes people like to fly a little bit lower, 3.4, 3.3 even. And maybe I usually don't go below 3.3, but some people even do that. But if you fly it lower than 3.5, you definitely got to charge it back up after you're done. And since this doesn't have any sort of storage voltage function on it, I use these to and the storage function on my Tenergy to get it back up to storage voltage. So that's been working pretty well for me. I will say, not great integration with kind of modern day battery charging storage solutions and whatnot, but yeah, that's all right. So that's the batteries. And next I'll talk about the motors. Motors they were great. No complaints really. They are a weird size. They're 08015. So that means usually for tiny whoops you see 0702s. But these are 08015. So they're like a little bit wider and a little bit less tall. And CI FPV actually has a really interesting discussion about this. Generally, they work great. I mean, they stay cool. They are probably a heavier or slash slightly more motor than you would need for this type of thing, but I don't know. They work great. So no complaints at all. Oh, and also motor plugs, which are love that for a drone like this, especially something prioritizing for beginners slash for durability. Definitely go with motor plugs. I haven't had to replace a single motor, but if you do have to replace a motor, or if you just want to upgrade your motors to something, maybe higher kV, more powerful, or lighter weight, whichever you want to do, very easy to just take all 4 off, plug them in, good to go, no soldering, nothing, which is so nice. So I love that they did motor plugs on this type of thing. If you're going super lightweight, eventually you have to stop doing motor plugs, but for something heavier like this, motor plugs all the way. And then, so the propellers, they originally came with some avian red propellers, and those were great. I loved them a lot. I eventually wore those out, and I've switched to these, mostly just because I had these on here. These are a Gym Fan 12195R. So I don't really know. I just happen to have these from another tiny whoop, and they've been working great. I I feel like these propellers are a little bit lighter weight, I think. So it's some propellers are very subjective, but I like these propellers pretty well. I feel like have they're like slightly smoother, a little bit better response time, maybe. Hard to say, but generally they're pretty much the same as the originals, and the originals worked very well. So really no complaints there. Next, I'm going to talk about the VTX. So the VTX is, I have a love-hate with the VTX on this guy. The VTX, I don't know if it's going to be a little bit difficult to tell, but the VTX is separate than the flight controller. So it's a 4-in-1 flight controller and the separate VTX, which generally I love because it's nice when like if something breaks, which your VTX is often one of the things that breaks on your drone, you can just replace the VTX and you don't have to replace the entire flight controller. So for something that's prioritizing durability and not caring about like weightness, this is like amazing. I really like that it has a separate VTX. And while they were at it, they were able to you get a much better VTX if you have an external VTX. So this drone, I think, has like excellent quality, like just like video reception, I guess. Because you got a nice powerful VTX on there. I usually run it at 25 or 100 milliwatts, but I think it goes up to 400, which is like so fun. And then it's just you don't get that like flashes and lines on your video feed like you get if you have a all-in-one flight controller VTX. It's kind of hard, like if you watch like especially like I don't know, like a Mobula 6 or I have a Mobula 8, and every once in a while there's just kind of like flashes and flickers in the VTX, especially on a punch out or something like that. And it's because your flight controller and VTX are all in one, obviously, and then you just get electrical noise. But you don't have that with this, which is awesome. But the one thing that um, hasn't been great for the VTX is I've owned it for about 9 months now, and it basically cuts out whenever I crash, or especially if I crash hard. Sometimes, like it can handle lighter crashes, but if I crash hard, the VTX just cuts out, and the only way to like fix it is to just unplug the battery and plug it right back in, and then it's fixed. So it's a little bit weird. There could be a number of things going on there. One is I could have damaged something. Maybe the VTX is just broken and needs to be replaced, which I like because it's a replaceable VTX. That's great. Maybe another issue could be that like I need a capacitor or something on here. Maybe the 5-volt regulator on the all-in-one flight controller can't really like handle the voltage spikes from a crash very well. I don't really know if that's it. Or the last issue is, which I'll get into later, but I did have to increase the motor startup power on these motors. And maybe I would say only within the last like 3 months have I started having this VTX issue where it crashes, like when I crash, it cuts out. And that was maybe 2 or 3 months after I increased the startup power. So maybe that's related. I don't really know. It's been a bit disappointing and kind of annoying, but at the same time, maybe for example, this drone, if it was like a Beta FPV Air 65, it would be like just completely broken. And at least I have something that still totally flies fine. I just like if I crash it hard, I pretty much always have to just go pick it up and unplug the battery and then plug it back in. So it's like annoying, but not a deal breaker for me. But definitely like not the best. And I haven't figured out what the issue is. And maybe my batteries are running out and I just need new fresh batteries and that would fix the problem. But any one of those solutions I don't love because it's like I got to spend money and I don't even know if it will like actually fix the problem. So it's kind of a tough one. Oh, and I will mention I did rule out that I direct soldered the VTX to the all-in-one flight controller. Sorry, originally there was a plug, and so there's the wires on the AIO side are soldered, but then there was a plug on the VTX side, and I tried switching out for just like direct solder to see if that would fix the issue, but that did not fix the issue. So I've done a little bit of troubleshooting, and I don't really have a feeling that any of the other things that I could try would even fix the issue. So I'm just kind of flying as it is right now, which is fine. It's great for cruising around flying, but if you're going to try to freestyle, eventually I think I've been having at least issues with this video transmitter kind of cutting out on me, but it is what it is. Last thing, I love that. Sorry, not last thing, but one thing that I do love is the USB-C connection, which is like flawless in my opinion. It's like nice and tucked in there. You're not going to easily damage it, and it's like perfect. USB-C, great. Oh, and I meant to mention the antenna. I love the antenna on this little guy. It is like held down with some kind of like glue, which is perfect. I've never had a disconnection at all. It would be annoying if you wanted to switch out your antenna, but honestly, this antenna works great. I guess it's a bit heavier, but it works well. And originally, when I got this drone, I was like, isn't the antenna gonna like end up in a propeller? But I think it's somehow just long enough that it doesn't do that. And maybe it's even springier enough that it kind of just like if it crashes upside down, it doesn't, it like almost like helps the drone kind of stay up and then you can turtle mode back over. So I don't really know. I thought I wasn't gonna hate. I thought I was gonna hate this antenna, but honestly, I love it. It's great. No complaints. Other than I guess it's heavy, but I haven't had a single time where the antenna. I mean, you can see I've flown hundreds of batteries through this, and the antenna is like perfect. So yeah, good. No complaints there at all. And then last but not least, I will talk about the camera that's on here. This is some kind of Rumcam camera. And honestly, I love this camera. And maybe it's the awesome like quality VTX that goes with it, but this camera is great. I've flown Runcam Nanos, I've flown Caddx Ants, I've flown Beta FPV CO3s, um, various I've probably thrown at least 5 or 6 different, maybe even 7 different types of analog cameras. And I think the Beta FPV CO3 is probably my favorite by far. That camera is just so good, but this is like next best in my opinion, which is like really saying something. It's like a very, very good camera. I've been very happy with it. So yeah, no complaints at all with the camera. And it's like very nicely protected. Like I feel like the canopy design is like perfect for that.
All right, next, real quick, I'll talk about a couple Betaflight things. The way it comes from the factory is like pretty much perfect. You don't need to adjust anything. The main thing that confused me is that this is a SPI based receiver. Oh man, you can see my binding phrase. That's all right. I might block that out. This is a SPI based receiver, and so instead of doing your normal like flash to Betaflight and or flash ELRS or like connect via Wi-Fi, all you have to do is go into the Betaflight configurator and type in your binding phrase here, and then you are good to go. It will connect to your controller like no problems. So super easy, but a little bit confusing. It's different than some other things that you might be used to for bind and fly drones. And with that being said, I wouldn't recommend upgrading Betaflight firmware for this drone because the ELRS version is kind of baked into the software of the firmware, and you have to trust that if you do update that Emax and everything have like worked with Betaflight to like make sure that the ELRS is working again if you update it. So I wouldn't trust that. Um, so I would just go with the default Betaflight firmware version, which on mine is 4.4.3, works great. And that's what you got to do. And yeah, otherwise everything's pretty good to go. Um, Video transmitter, OSD tabs. I'll show you guys real quick my modes tab. I have my arm, angle, horizon. I have a beeper, flip over after crash, and yeah, that's pretty straightforward. That's all you got to do. And then the only other thing I'll show you is the ESC configurator. Um, so plug that in, make sure it connects. By the way, I found that this drone was a little bit picky about which USB cables worked. It only works for me on a USB-C to USB-A. It doesn't work on USB-C to USB-C. Not really sure why, but that's just what it is. Um, so I was having an issue about halfway through my time flying this that some of the motors weren't starting up properly. It was just like they wouldn't start spinning, 1 or 2 of them sometimes. And so what I had to do was I had to go to ESC configurator and I had to turn up the startup power. I think they were both kind of down here when I started, and I turned them both up. Basically, you want this as low as you possibly can have it, but the motors still reliably start up. So I was having issues with some of the motors starting up, and that is what I did to fix that issue.
So yeah, that is how I feel about this little drone. In conclusion, I love this drone so much. I've had a great time with it. And I'm definitely going to recommend it to people, but I'm gonna like put that with a caveat. So I've been flying it for about 9 months now, and I've been flying FPV for about a year and a half now. And I'm just getting to the point where I think I want something a little bit lighter weight that I can kind of freestyle and do tricks with, and just like kind of fly proximity and shoot gaps a little bit more easily than something that's heavier like this. I meant to mention, I meant to take the all up weight as well. By the way, these are 320 milliamp hour batteries, which are just slightly heavier than your typical 300, but you get more runtime, which is great. So the all up weight on this guy is like 32.5 grams. And so definitely a bit of a chunky boy. And I have considered upgrading to, selling this guy and upgrading to something that's a little bit more lightweight that'll be easier to kind of, more fun to fly, especially if we're doing like freestyle inside. If that's something I'm interested in like getting to be better at. And then also the downside of the VTX cutting out when I like crash it hard has been definitely a pretty big bummer these days for flying this if I want to like learn freestyle with it at least. So all that to say, I've been super happy with it. It's been extraordinarily durable. I have crashed this thing so many times and so hard, and definitely not been easy on it. That said, I feel like at the point in my FPV career right now, year and a half in, I'm like, okay, this has been fun. I think I've got my use out of it. It's starting to kind of just die away. I think it might be time to upgrade to something new and a little bit better. But I think it served like an outstanding like place in my little FPV journey, and I've been super happy to have flown this. I will say disclosure that I won this drone in International Game of Whoop as one of the prizes, and it was sponsored by Emax. So they didn't ask me to do a review or anything. I'm just doing this on my own. But yeah, it's been super, super. I've really enjoyed owning this little guy. And yeah, if you're a beginner FPV, I think it's an excellent choice for you. And if you're looking for something that just kind of like cruise around, scout around, this is the perfect thing with the Emax Tiny Hawk Nano.